Hey, GolfCast members, this is Bailie here bringing you Pouring in Birdies, kind of a bottle share, and I am on my last official zero Guinness. Mike, you got your zero?
I do. I
All
have it here.
right. And Chris, of course, Mike is with us, and we have Chris George. Chris, that doesn't look like a Guinness zero to me.
It's in GolfCask spirit is what it is. You know, I got to
That
support
does
the
not look
brand.
like a you dog. What flavor?
Envy tonight.
Nice. Just the regular Angel Envy, or
Yep, just regular.
Okay.
Yep.
Making sure you're not throwing some double oak or something.
No, nothing special.
Okay. Very good. So I think today's episode will be kind of fun. We're going to last week we ended with the importance of a kind of what your warm up is. I think a lot of people view warm up for an event as something more than it really is. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll circle back to the Masters, because I don't think anybody that watched the actual Masters couldn't take away just some unbelievable moments, good, bad, and other. So we'll circle back on that as well. But anything exciting going on with you two right now?
Well, for me, our semester is about over, so that means summer
I mean, summer.
break is here. So that's, to me, very exciting.
Are you grading a lot of papers right now?
They're coming in 2 days, and
Okay.
then I will be.
Then I will be. Then
Oh,
you'll be
yeah.
in a dark hole for a couple weeks.
Well, hopefully not that long. Hopefully 4 or 5 days, and I'll be done.
All right, very good. Chris, anything exciting going on?
No, the college championships are finishing up, so they'll be moving on. The teams that move on to regionals, and then obviously you have a lot of players that are playing mini tour events and looking forward to Q School, and so a lot going on right now.
No, I think, I know Charlottesville is hosting a regional on the women's side. I've gotten a plethora of phone calls from coaches that are playing in the regional going, so tell me about Birdwood. No, won't do it. Unless you send me a check. No.
Right.
No, I think I've had 4 coaches call me today going, so give me a rundown. I was like, it's pretty straightforward. Depending on where they put the tees, it could be a bear.
It could
be a bear. But all right, so let's start this puppy off with Mike, Chris. What are your thoughts about a pre-round warm-up? So we're talking big match with your buddies, club championship, college event, tour event. Boom, I tee off at 10:40. When do I need to get there, and what the heck am I doing, and am I looking for confidence? Who wants to jump in first?
I can start, and Chris, you want to go after and follow up on some of the things? And well, I think it does depend on what you're referring to, because a lot of people at their club championship or anything aren't going to probably do a good workout ahead of time, but certainly the tour pros often do. They'll do a workout, and a lot of them feel like that provides the kind of energy that they need, actually. A lot of people think that'll wear them down, but it actually often will provide some real energy for the round. And then my idea about the warm-up is probably pretty familiar to a lot of people. It's the idea isn't really to try to acquire a whole bunch of confidence for the round necessarily. It's just about warming up your body and figuring out what the conditions are today, so you can compare those conditions with your game plan, and possibly need to realize you might have to tweak a couple things or change a couple things depending on. And those, again, at the higher levels, they'll do that. They'll know what their contingencies are, and they'll have that planned out. So they'll have a pretty good idea what the conditions are going to be anyway, but if anything surprises come, they'll know. And so then from there, it's just your typical warming up and hitting various shots from the various places. And there's different types of shots on the range and the short game facility and the putting green. But so I'm not going to go any specifics there. I think Chris will probably have more to say about all that.
Yeah, so I'll dive into the confidence aspect.
Okay.
First, I'll start with, for your club golfer with the member guest, the confidence probably builds with the Bloody Mary count, right? So we'll start there. And then confidence for the tour player level player is going to build with knowing that the work they've done prior to 3 weeks or more leading into the event, right? So that mindset does change depending on the player. But let's just say it's a club golfer. I think it's important to kind of focus on the ability for you to focus on what your important factors are depending on your player level. So it might be for a player that shoots 85 to 95. It might be okay, when we warm up, let's focus on controlling our distances from 40 to 75 yards and then hitting our tee shot and play. That would be a good mindset for warm up. From the other end of the spectrum, let's say it's a tour player, I would say that, they're going to do their pre-work leading into the event with the practice rounds. But the day of the event, let's say Thursday morning, they are going to dial in their speed, just refine it. I shouldn't say dial in, but refine it on putting. And then they've already warmed up their body, they've been in the gym, and then they're on the tee, they're actually hitting shots, maybe 3 shots or 4 shots to different targets of specific yardages that they're going to have and encounter during the round. And then they may hit some par 3 tee shots for specific yardages, and then they might hit some tee shots on the range for specific shot shapes. One of the things we saw at the Masters is one of the cool things about the range at the Masters is they actually have a bunker that shapes one of the holes that's an exact replica, so that players, and it's at the exact distance for that specific hole, so they can actually see and hit shots and see how that ball is going to fly and curve on that contour of slope and direction. So, completely different ends of the spectrum for players. But the reality is that I think you need to go into it with a realistic expectation of how much preparation in the past have I done to allow me to be successful in this moment over the next, let's say, 5 hours.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I love going to watching people warm up because it's fascinating to watch at every level. Just what are they doing? What does it take? And again, I would say collegiately down, warm up is, I would say a lot of times is not beneficial. I think I see a lot of times collegiately in junior golf that they're putting worth on what they're doing via making putts, hitting chips, contact, like shape, like they're putting so much worth on before they go play and not thinking of it as my body going, now we're hitting off of mats, maybe we're hitting really bad range balls. We're on a putting green that might not even be the same grass as the golf course. You see that a lot of times in junior golf, and they're putting all this value on, kind of expectations and how it finishes, opposed to what are they really trying to accomplish. So I think a lot of amateurs, a lot of good players that don't understand warm-up actually sabotage themselves before they even go on the golf course because they put this worth and they're just like, I was hitting it so good on the range, I'm going to play so well today. Maybe. Yeah. I've never hit it so bad in my life. I'm going to play so bad today. Maybe.
Yeah. It's so hard to have these players let go of that.
Yeah.
But it's true. That's such a great point. And we have a number of examples over the years of PGA Tour players who have said, that was the worst warm-up I ever had, and then go shoot 63 or something like that. And we know that the range and the course will have different contextual features that can bring out the skills differently from just 30 minutes ago when they were on the range. So we often know that players will often say, I just need to move my range game to the course. That's what I need to do. But sometimes you don't want that.
Right.
You don't want that range game to the course, and realize that the course game could be even so much better.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm with you.
And the beauty of a range, it's as vanilla as it gets. It should be a pretty flat lie. It should be pretty good grass. It tends to be wide open in front of you.
Yeah, right.
So the danger again, well, you did hit it really well on the range. You made great contact, but did you really hit it well?
Yeah,
Were you
exactly.
really hitting targets? No, I think it's quite interesting. And my son played this weekend, and it was fun because he hadn't played in about 4 months. So it was like his first event of the year. Nerves were through the roof, and I'm a good dad. I'm not his coach. I stay away. I just watch. And I watched his warm up, and I'm like, what the hell is he doing? It was scattered and just terrible. So he played really, really not well the first round. And the good news is that it opened him up for a conversation. And as we're eating lunch, I was like, well, what could we have done different in warm up to get you prepared for X, Y, Z? And he had some good self-reflection, and now he's working on a new routine to get ready for, he's got an event this weekend. So he's been he's actually been going to the golf course and working his new routine on how he's getting ready. So
Cool.
he's like, I will be prepared this Saturday to be prepared to play. I go,
That's great.
perfect. That is a step forward. How many people listening to this, golfer-wise, actually have done that?
I know. That's right. I mean, I can tell you my two daughters who played college golf, who now just, they enjoy golf and we go play sometimes. They never warm up. They go straight to the tee. And I know that is the case for a lot of people. But for them, they never work on their golf swing. And it's the same all the time, pretty much. It's almost the same. So they don't even, and they're very flexible, and all that. So I don't even care. We're just really looking forward to a nice, fun round together. And they want to shoot in the 70s every time, but still, they seem to be able to already be warmed up to a certain extent. But that's not typical because they just never practice either because they just like to play the game. So it's so everybody's different, I think. And so I think the warm-ups could be different based on the personality of the player. And we know even the best players, there's a lot of differences in terms of how they go about it.
Well, yeah, some players are going to want to see balls going in the hole. They want to see, and some just don't really care. Like some are just like, can I get into a position that I'm comfortable? Okay, we're good. So I think a lot of that, and I think too, I know collegiately what we used to do is every player would have a routine for warm-ups, whatever their normal time was, and we never gave them more than an hour and 20 minutes. That was it. If you can't figure it out in an hour and 20 minutes, which I didn't even want to give them that much, like that's it. We're not getting to the golf course 2.5 hours early because we're playing 5. So poor 5, if you're playing 5, number one, sitting in the van for like 5 hours, not happening. So we're like 120, but we always said you need to have a 30-minute and a 10-minute. Because I said, what happens if we get stuck in traffic?
Yeah.
And then literally the 5 player might be jumping out of the van, bag on, you got 10 minutes. Well, what are you going to do? How are you going to be prepared to go play? Because I don't want you being on the third hole looking at me going, I'm playing so bad because of you, coach. We couldn't get here in time. Well, we've prepared for this.
Yeah, amazing.
You need to be ready to have that plan. And I think a really interesting part you talked about, Mike, and this is another thing I think golfers are really bad at, a game plan. Can you expand on a game plan, Mike? Well, some golfers are going, what? Game plan? You just grab your driver and you rip it at the hole and you go putt and you go to the next hole.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the more competitive amateurs will put game plans together a lot of times, but a lot of recreational players haven't thought about it. But yeah, it's a matter of knowing the course, really, right? And knowing your game and matching them up properly. So knowing your game really well and knowing your tendencies and knowing what the golf course is like and figuring out. I think, like I said, I like creating a game plan where you know what you're hitting off the tee. You know generally the approach areas you're going to have depending on pins. So there's always contingencies involved, of course. And that's where it gets a little more complicated, I think, especially for a recreational player where they're like, what do I even think about when I'm on a golf course trying to figure out what it's all about? And sometimes people can do too much of that. I know that there are players who can go and play a brand new course for the first time and just perceive it so well and pick out great decisions and play it great. So, but I just think having that preparation of knowing what your plan is given certain conditions and then what your contingencies are allows you to make adaptations so much easier when you actually play in a tournament situation. Like even if you are a professional and you have a caddy, those conversations during the prep, even if they don't actually hit any shots but walk the course on a Wednesday, for instance, so important. So then once they get to that particular green and they had a couple possibilities, possibly the golfer might go, hey, I'm hitting it like this today. I feel like this today. Because they've already thought through it all, that is a decision they can make and feel comfortable with, even if it's a change, and they can feel like they can commit to it. But if they hadn't even talked about it, now they're sitting there in a level of indecisiveness that's hard to get rid of. So it's that preparation and conversation with themselves or with a caddy that I think really allows them to commit, even if they make an adaptation. But they've got to get the first one set. And with a few contingencies thrown in there, not necessarily a few each hole, but a few across the whole 18 holes.
No, and I know you, Chris, you're a wing it kind of guy. What do you think?
That's real funny. I'm definitely not that. Planning and preparation is absolutely the key. I would tell you that all of my players, let's say above the club level, like collegiate or higher, even elite juniors are doing a massive amount of planning. They're using some type of navigational app or Google Earth to plan shot patterns and dispersions on tee shots and sight lines. They're looking at the wind the day before the event, the days of the event, and the day after the event to make sure that there's no wind direction shift or massive change in wind. And also they know what clubs they're hitting off what tees before they play a practice round, which also gives them some insight to what par fives they may be going for or what distances they're going to have in on the par fives for their third shot on the ones they're not going for. So I call it a 30-15-10-5 plan, where 30 days out, they're doing all the extra stuff, the preliminary pre-work, and then 15 days out, they're starting to prep for that particular event. They're hitting wedge shots on their third shot of par five. They're hitting fairway woods on their go for it's on their par fives. They're hitting three woods or drivers on tight par fours or par fives that they need to put the ball in play. And they're starting to understand their par three yardages and wind direction. And they're actually positioning themselves not only on the range to do that, but I highly encourage a lot of these players to go out on the golf course and tee up a ball in the middle of the fairway on a fairly flat lie, so they actually have the stimulation of the environment from bunkers to hole locations. And they're hitting these shots from these specific yardages 15, 10, and 5 days in advance to the event. And then once they're on site, we talked about the ability to prepare. Once they're on site, all their pre-work's done, all their core work is done. It's focused on short game, how the ball's landing on the green, shot selection, conditions of the bunkers, and then speed of the greens. And that's what they're spending the majority of their time on, is adapting to the changing conditions, the grass conditions. If they tend to play on Bermuda and now they're at a place that has zoysia or bluegrass or whatever the type of grass may be, how well are they adapting and being able to assess the lies and hit the shots? And for the club golfer, that may mean that you just really dial into paying attention. Is this wind different than what I normally play in on my home course? Or am I feeling very confident because of the second Bloody Mary that I'm going to go for this par 5 and 2 because I'm 2 down and I need to press, right? So,
there's I'm already 2 down. I got this. Right. No, I think it's amazing. I always, when I'm working with different athletes as they're progressing and we're starting talking about game plan work, I'm like, name a sport that you do not game plan against your opponent, right? So most people in golf don't think as the golf course is their opponent. They think as their fellow competitors. You can't play defense on them. You can't yell you could yell during the swing, but you wouldn't last very long, I imagine. So you can't really stop what your opponent's competitor is doing. Your opponent is the golf course. So what you need to figure out is the golf course is going to give you something, and it's going to want to try to take from you. Every golf course has give and take. So you as a competitor need to be prepared to go. And I used to tell athletes this all the time. If the 3 easiest holes are the first 4 holes, 3 of the easiest holes are in the first 4, you better be on one ready to give yourself an opportunity to make birdie. Like a lot of players, I need to warm myself up. I kind of get into the match. No, your 3 easiest holes are 1, 2, and 4. You go rolling into 5 and you're even. The leaders might be 2 or 3 under. Like, okay, you just given away. Now your competitors are moving forward on the golf course, and now you're looking at the hardest part of the course coming up, and you just gave away 3 opportunities that you just kind of didn't pay attention to. So yeah. I think for the golfer, just to be able to see the golf course as the opponent and everybody else is just noise. Again, like at the Masters, what Rory's doing is what Rory's doing. Justin Rose is going 10 birdies, going nuts, crowd's crazy. Bryson is hanging in there, then he presses and goes a little sideways and then kind of bring it. So again, it's understanding who your true opponent is.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of athletes, and I think a lot of not, younger golfers, juniors, even some collegians, think pros just show up to an event and they're just so good they don't even think this. Like it's kind of like you don't think Tom Brady didn't throw those passing trees 10 million times. Like for him to throw that ball in that spot at that time, you don't think that's like he has trained that beyond belief. Every one of those athletes have a plan and of course have contingencies of weather changes, tee changes, the beauty of golf it's forever changing. Hole placements are changing, the tees are changing forward, back. So the golf course is always changing, the conditions are changing. But I don't think a lot of athletes really think hard about setting up a plan to go attack the golf course. And they're even worse, and Chris, I'm glad you do this with your players, thinking about, oh my God, I'm going to play this event. Distance irons am I going to have in? Well, let's train those a little harder.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be hitting, 5 shots between 150 and 160, I think I need to be training 150 to 160 enough just to know that I'm prepared when I go to this event. I'm amazed, college golf coaches, I'm sorry, I'm throwing you under the bus. I'm amazed on how bad a lot of college golf coaches think, because they don't even train that way. They don't go, all right, the average distance in is going to be this, so you're going to start to see these shots. We're playing a really long course. You're a short hitter. You're not going to hit a wedge all week at 100 yards. You're either going to be hitting 40 yards because you couldn't get there. So we're not going to do a competition between 90 and 110 for you, because you're just not going to see that shot this event. So again, it's just preparing the player to go attack the golf course. And again, most players don't think that way. They think their competitor's their competitor. On the scoreboard it is, but that's not who's giving and taking from you in every round.
I'll just add one more piece to this related to a psychological reason. I think some people don't and feel uncomfortable putting themselves fully in on that preparation. Some people feel, and I've run across certainly clients that have this mentality, that it puts a lot of pressure on them when they put a lot of preparation in. So preparation for them leads to pressure because they're so afraid of putting all that time in and then it not working for them. And so they a way to protect themselves from that is not to put so much intense effort into the preparation plan. And if it's not like this is a real conscious thing, but when you work with somebody, enough people, you run across this and you get to the point where there's this realization that, well, what is it when you say you want to achieve it to these heights and yet you're only doing this much? And so let's talk through that. Instead of just getting on them and criticize them, it's about trying to figure out what that motivational underpinning is.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is what it is. It's sometimes it's called self-handicapping in psychological literature, and it's this idea that people kind of almost set up a reason for if they do fail and they didn't prepare as hard as they could, then they don't feel as much like they don't have what it takes to be able to succeed. So I would just throw that in there with some of the players that don't prepare as well as they could.
It's a good out. So let's jump over to the Masters. I thought Sunday was one of the best afternoons. I don't watch much golf. Golf bores the hell out of me on TV. But the Masters and the Open and the U.S. Open, and by the Open, I'm talking the British. Those three are must-see TV in our house. PGA, maybe. It depends. But those are the events, and I'm telling you, that Sunday afternoon, that was a roller coaster of roller coasters. And the one thing I thought was really cool, Justin went nuts. Bryson, we'll talk Bryson in the end. And then we had Rory doing Rory stuff, being spectacular and being not. Like all within 3 hours. It's just all this was going on. But what I thought was really fascinating, and this is how good Rory and his caddy worked together. Right when they finished, he missed the 8-footer or whatever to win the event, makes his bogey. His caddy walks up to him immediately and goes, "Hey." He completely reframed the entire conversation. He said, "Hey, on Thursday, if I told you we'd be here right now in a playoff, you would have taken it." And Rory goes, "Yeah, let's get to work." Like his caddy immediately said, "Don't dwell on that missed putt. We're going to reframe all of this. And daggone well, if I told you on Thursday, this is where we would be, you'd be ecstatic." So what are your thoughts on that, Chris and Mike?
Yeah, I think it was a very good relationship that they have. They understand each other. They understand the magnitude of that moment. They work well together. and they have a good friendship, and then they also understand the business side of what they're trying to achieve with winning a major golf tournament. Not to mention the Masters, and not to mention the career Grand Slam.
That's a lot going on right there.
So
and not to mention a couple years ago, you hit it in the
right,
the Butler cabin.
Yeah, and so the stimulation alone, I think that comfort really for somebody that you trust to be able to say something like that really played a big role.
Yeah, that's great, Chris. I like that too, and I know that sometimes caddies in the situation like that have just as much pressure almost because they don't know what to say sometimes. And they're a little afraid to say something that might move them in the wrong mental direction. But that was great. And it was great that he did have that, they did have that relationship so that he felt free to say something like that. Makes total sense. Psychologically, I mean, he had to have felt terribly disappointed at that moment. I mean, he probably felt it was right there, and then of course it was gone. So there was a loss, a feeling of disappointment, and maybe even some sadness. I don't know Rory McIlroy, but watching him over the years and listening to him talk, it seems like he's prone to feeling pretty sad when these losses happen. And so to reframe it like that gets him out of that loss disappointment mode right away, and it gets him back in gear like, hey, there's something to work for. And when people are sad or disappointed, they're not very strong goal strivers. That kind of goes away with that emotion. And so I always say sadness is the worst emotion to have when you're playing golf and trying to compete and play well. And so I think that reframe in particular got rid of that and moved him into a more determined stance. I thought it was just perfect.
No, I thought that was pretty well said by the caddy, and that might be a future show. I work with Chris has a bunch of tour guys as well, Mike. Their ability to find the right caddy, that could be an entire show in itself.
Yes,
that's a show in itself because that is a fiasco at times. But I think that was really interesting, and I really thought Rory's quote at the end was, "It wasn't joy that I felt per se; it was relief." Like when he dropped down on his knees and was like screaming, it wasn't like, I've done it, yes, I'm the master. He's just like, thank you, dear Lord, this is done. Like the relief of, like I said, winning the Masters, career Grand Slam, out having the Live Tour guy in your group staring you down, having like your best friend, one of your best friends in the back, just making a run of all runs at you, and for you to hold together. So kind of, what do you guys think about the relief more than joy?
Yeah,
Chris, you got a thought on that?
I think there's a lot of value to that. It's one of the quotes that I read was, what are you guys going to talk about next week? Because now I don't have to answer any questions. Basically, I've done what I needed to do.
But it goes to Scotty now.
In addition to this, I'm also kind of looking forward to Quail Hollow because Rory plays Quail Hollow really well, and that's a track for him. So, there's momentum here, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen in May.
Quail's a good course.
Yeah.
Have you played it? It's fun.
Yeah, real good.
Awesome. Well, my view of it is that relief, like a lot of times we can reveal what goal somebody had based on the emotion they experience when it either is successful or it's not. And so typically people are going to experience joy when they're in a approach mentality where they really want this. They're focused on what they want to do, or they are very calm, and at least they're not worried or trying to prevent a bad outcome. So joy, like Justin Thomas just won the RBC Heritage, and he said he experienced this joy, basically this happiness. Yeah. That tells you he was in a very different emotion and a goal state. The whole goal state was different than Rory. Rory's relief is based on trying to avoid some terrible thing. And he succeeded in avoiding this whole year of more of this terrible, angst that he's going to experience across the whole another year. And so that's how I look at it.
One of the interesting things while we're on that, that Rory said was, he was trying to create that feeling like he and Rotella talked about early on. And so that's an interesting statement that, Justin comes through, winning the RBC as well, talking about, that feeling or that state.
Yeah.
It was quite interesting because he definitely looked like a man that was like Justin Thomas just had this grin from ear to ear. It was like, I can't believe I won this. Oh my God, it's been since, it's been 3-4 years. And, then Rory, but it had been 11, 12 since he won a major. So it'd been a lot of years. So again, a lot of those questions, why haven't you won more majors? Why have you not, why not? So again, that makes perfect sense. Kind of what you said, Mike. He was worried more about, if I don't do this, what am I going to have to deal with, opposed to the joy of just winning the event. So I think that's a pretty good take.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I tend to think that's kind of what he's been like, and that's part of his personality. It's just, I remember back in during COVID times, there was this TV match, and I don't remember all 4 people, but it was Tiger Woods, Justin Thomas, and Rory McIlroy, and somebody else. And they were having certain contests during it, and they were trying to make it kind of fun. And so there was a deal where who's going to be the longest hitter on this hole. And everybody looked to Rory. Tiger looked to Rory. Justin looked to Rory. And immediately, now I don't know what was going through his mind, but if we understand that behavior has a purpose behind it and a goal in front of it, before it, then what I noticed what he did right away is he looked down to the ground and he took off his hoodie. So I'm like, okay, why is he looking to the ground and taking his hoodie right when he saw them say it's Rory that's going to hit it the longest? The reason why I think he did that is he starts thinking, what could get in the way? What could stop me from meeting the expectations of these golfers? So he takes off the thing so that it makes him unencumbered to be able to swing the way he wants to. Later on, they had the contest of who's going to hit it the straightest. They all looked to Tiger Woods. Tiger saw them do it. Miss a beat. Nothing changed, didn't look down, smiled as if, all right, yep, this is exactly right.
You're right. I am going to be the one that does it.
I am going to be the one. I think that's the difference between Rory and Tiger. But because of that, the fact that Rory was able to do this is an incredible feat, especially given that way of something that he's had to try to overcome for, I think, many years. And that's the way he thinks motivationally. And I think that's makes him really good in terms of figuring things out. But on the other hand, in those scenarios, he's been way too prevention oriented in terms of his avoidance stuff. And I think that's just about who he is.
Yeah.
Makes it harder for him.
No, but again, for him to come out with a double and then like the field just goes shoom, and then he pulls away and then he hits a wedge in the creek and you're like
13.
Like a wedge in the creek. Oh no.
Yep.
And then comes back and like birdies the next hole and you're just like it was just like
Yep.
I know there was millions of people sitting on their chairs just going, what the heck am I watching here? Like,
exactly.
It was good television. I thought Justin Rose came out firing the first day, kind of fell back a little bit, and what he did on the last day was immortal. 10 birdies on a Sunday at Augusta, getting into the playoff, making birdie on 18. But I thought he had really interesting comments too. And he's, I think back in the olden days, I think the majors did it right when they had to come back the next day and play 18. Now I know TV hates that because they don't want to give up the Monday to show it or whatever. But how hard is it, Chris, Mike, when you think about this, when you're in a tournament, you're playing shot by shot, hole by hole, progressing for a score, you're tied, and then they look at you and go, all right, sudden death, next person that wins the hole. So the mindset of golf completely inside of your round has completely changed. It'd be like playing stroke play for the first 18, match play for the next 9, some Stableford system right after that, back into regular stroke play. So for an athlete to sit there and just put on a show, 10 birdies, 10 what, and then just to be able to look at them and say, all right, from this point forward, everything that you've done for 4 days, it's thrown out the window. Now it's you versus this person, best score wins. How do you, as an athlete, kind of rally for that and get prepared for that?
Chris, you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'd start with, I'm still playing the golf course. right? I mean, you got to be the best version of you, and you have to execute your game plan and know that your preparation has allowed you to be successful in this moment. And that alone really gives a lot of confidence to you as a player to be able to enjoy the victory.
That's great. A question just came to mind as you both were talking. I wonder if there are statistics, I'm sure you could find them, about who wins a playoff a sudden death playoff more often, the person who just finished last or the person who already finished earlier and then has a lot of time before that happens. Do you have any clues, or have you
I
looked
have
into that?
none. We'll have to go look, see if.
Yeah, I'm really curious about that.
And it'd be interesting also to kind of look at the data and say the person that made the comeback, how often did they win opposed to the guy that kind of
Yes,
sludged it in, and yeah, that'd be kind of interesting as well.
love it.
But
Those would be two great data points for sure.
yeah, at least see how they react psychologically.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I was thinking about was, you dream your whole life, and, I'm sure Justin Rose, I think he mentioned this actually. As a kid, you're always practicing, and this is the putt to win the Masters. He does it, and he has less than an hour to enjoy it. I mean, and that's tough. Then all of a sudden he's starting all over again. And then he misses the putt, on the
Yeah,
playoff hole. And it's like, that's life. That's tough stuff.
I know. Collegiately, the NCAA, right as I was kind of getting out of college, they changed their format from everything was stroke play to stroke play into match play. Well, college golf never played match play. Like, it was not done. So all of a sudden you were taking a format that was never played, but it was good for television. And don't tell me there's any other reason why the NCAA went to that model. It was because the Golf Channel said we can put match play on TV. So they went from stroke play to match play, and then wondered why the first couple years of match play on TV was awful, because nobody had a concept of what match play was.
Hmm.
So then, the good news is colleges started to create match play events, and the athletes got into that. But I will never forget those first couple years. They're just like, this is just bad television. I'm like, you're putting these kids in a situation that they don't really understand. Like, match play is not played often. Not in junior golf, not in high school golf, not collegiately, until the biggest event of the year. We're going to go, hey, let's do something new. And I'm just like, frustration as a coach. And again, I think, so to me, I love the sudden death. It's great drama. It's great. It's like penalty shots in soccer. It's great drama. Man, I want to see what happens. But I think at a major, man, I think you tee them up. Or at least like the British, they play an aggregate. You play 3 holes. At least there's a flow and some sort of, like, gets you back into what you're playing. Where I think, again, it's when it's just one hole, one shot. Rory, hit the shot of his life, but who knows if there was one more hole, he could have dumped it in the water again. Like, you don't know. Like, so
You
to
don't
me,
know.
I think taking that, it's good television. Don't get me wrong. I was like fascinated, but I was sitting there going, man, I would love to watch 18 holes with these two tomorrow, head to head. Go get them. But no,
I'm with you on that, Brian.
yeah.
I'd like that 18 hole the next day too.
There's so
It
much
just seems
streaming
like a
services now. There's so much
greater test.
streaming. There's no reason it couldn't be.
Right.
Yeah, don't you also think that the current format is like who's going to show up short-term clutch, like who's going to pull the shot off in the moment when they got to hit it?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of suspense to it too.
There
No, it's
is.
great
There's
I
no
see
doubt
both
suspense.
sides.
It's great
honestly.
television.
It's
Yeah, a lot of suspense. And like if somebody gets way ahead early, then your last 9 holes isn't so interesting. If it's a Monday 18 holer. So I get that for sure too. That's a good point, Chris. And that's the tough thing. Maybe being biased because of Justin Rose's experience. I would rather have him have a whole night of just enjoying what he just did. And of course, Rory would be in agony probably the rest of that night.
Could you imagine? He would not be watching Disney flicks with Poppy or whatever. He'd be like, oh no, like I had 8 feet for it all. And then no. But
Yeah.
I can remember back when Curtis Strange and Ernie Els and those guys are fighting for the US Open, and just mano a mano on the golf course. Then it becomes really a match play. It's still stroke numbers, but it's just head to head, and that is great television too, because that is just
Yeah.
will versus will and whatnot. But No, I do, but with all the streaming now, come on, man. Like, how much money would they make for an extra day of the Masters? Like, there would be some wonderful contingency plans
Yep.
on
Right.
advertising.
Oh yeah.
Let's hit the PGA, but let's hit the Masters and all these big majors and think of the revenue source. Think of the revenue source. But I thought that was interesting that how he hit that, and I think it was also kind of interesting where he said, I was getting all these great congratulatory phone calls, and I really appreciated it, but it's not the call I wanted. I wanted them to call me saying, "Congratulations, Masters champion," opposed to "Great round, great fight."
Yeah.
Again, I thought Tyson Rose, of all the post round interviews, I thought he was just, but I probably came with age. He's a little older, knowing his window is closing, but just to kind of be able to sit there and reflect and go, this is awesome. I love all these phone calls, but it's just not the call I wanted.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Disappointments in the game, aren't there? Huge ones.
In this game.
And the success. I mean, you think about Justin making the putt on 18, that will go down in his memory bank as one of the all-time best putts he's ever hit in his life.
Yeah.
Like, I made that to get in the playoff because I had to.
Yeah.
I can do this. Like, storing that for next call recollection in the event that you need it is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be hopefully he's had a lot of work with sports psychology, with sports psychologists. So I'm gonna guess he's going to think like that. He's going to have his disappointment too. They're going to have them both, but I think he's going to find a way to really take all that and, like you said, store it in his memory bank. I think he's gone through that route. He used to work with a sports psychologist that used to be all over Golf Channel. I can't remember his name off the top of my head now. And then Bob Rotella, I think he worked with him. What's that?
There's so many of them nowadays.
There's a lot of them. They're all over now. But anyway, yeah, he's had a lot of experience with that. You would think that he would have got that down. He seems just to have such a good, mature sense to him that what you just said probably is the case. But our culture certainly is about number one. It's about the win. And who's second is often forgotten.
Yeah.
And if they lost on a tough shot or something, then they're not forgotten, but then they have to replay that lousy putt or something like that for the rest of their lives.
That Jean-Claude Van der Van or whatever it was.
Exactly.
That poor guy.
Carnoustie dumped it in the creek.
I'll never forget when they went back to Carnoustie, they gave him a putter and said, "Can you beat your number?" And he beat it by 2 with the putter. So he went and played the hole with a putter and actually beat his score by 2 and would have won the Open, which I don't know if that's good or bad. I was like, whoever the producer that came up with that's a little mean.
Yeah, I know.
Well, we'll end on a funny note because, Bryson is by far one of the biggest lightning rods on earth. Most of the golf world wasn't a fan, majority of the golf world, and now he's kind of the golden boy. Everybody loves him, and I was even starting to swing his way, going, well, maybe Bryson is matured and he's this new guy and he's whatever. But his post-round interview, and I'm sure his PR team didn't like it. I don't know if you saw when they asked him about Rory, did he talk to him? And he sounded very, very catty, very, very immature, and very Bryson. Like, when pressure's on you and all this is happening, your true self tends to show up. And I think PR Bryson, now this is my opinion, I could be completely wrong, but I think PR Bryson didn't show up during that interview, and I thought he was really petty to Rory and what he was trying to do, and was trying to make it about him and not Rory. And like at that point I was like, the spots are not off the cheetah yet. That was just my opinion. Maybe I read way too much.
Yeah, well, I'll throw mine in. A guy like him is so different. You don't hear a lot about his social life, his friendships, and so on, but he seems to have friends, and they seem to last. So that's an interesting piece to me. I remember I was down at Bay Hill one year when he was, I think, a rookie on the tour, and my son and I were walking behind some bleachers, and he came walking to the next tee, and he actually gave with no one watching, he gave a real genuine friendly smile and a hello to my son and me, but mostly to my son. And I thought, now that's a genuine smile. Nobody's around. Nobody said. I was actually impressed with that. Now that's my first impression, so that maybe have stuck around. I think he really loves connection with people.
Yeah.
I think this PR thing, maybe PR, certainly it's PR, but I wonder if it's finally figuring out a way to express this real desire and need for connection with people.
Could be.
And I wonder if that's what it is. And when you that interview, I caught just a little bit of restraint in the way that he worded that about Rory not talking to him. It's like he had a little bit of either PR or a little bit of restraint
No,
that
there
he
was
didn't
definitely,
want
but
people
you
to
could
think.
see
Just
it was more of the old Bryson was trying to come out. It
I
was like,
know it did. It just wanted to come out, but he held himself
he
back
did.
slightly. So I don't really know what his personality's
I
about and
don't
all
either.
that, if he's a decent guy or not, or what. But I've kind of appreciated his uniqueness and his willingness to be unique. I have to say I've appreciated that through the years, as strange as a lot of the players who played with him at SMU and so on kind of thought he was a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those I'm kind of up in the air about it, but I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. Let's put it
Nah,
that way.
yeah, I hope Bryson is on a path to being what he's showing.
Yeah, right.
But, like I said,
Good way
like
of putting it.
at that one moment, I was just like,
Yeah, that one
What do you
wasn't.
think, Chris? You got any
Come on,
comments on
Greg.
Bryson?
Yeah, I will start with, I think he is amazing for the game. I think he
He's
moves
great
the
for the
needle.
game.
He hits the next generation of golfer. His, when I have kids that really are just coming into junior golf or PGA Junior League, and they're like, dude, did you see Bryson hit it over the house? Like, that's a huge needle mover, right? That's creating interest. And I agree with you, Mike, as well. I think that there is a connection. There's such a strong connection that I think he's finding a way where he feels connected to people in his own way. And whether that's through YouTube or whether that's through, golf. But I think it gives him joy. I think it brings some excitement to the game. And, eventually this all will be resolved and golf will be whole again. But I think that nonetheless, seeing these players play at the highest level in the majors, whether it's the Open Championship or whether it's the Masters, it's good for the game of golf. And I'm happy for him. And I think that he is working towards a better game and a better outcome for all of the game of golf. And I think that those are good things for the game.
Yeah. And I'm telling you right now, Live Tour, you better thank that Bryson's on your tour. Because if Bryson wasn't over there, the Live players rolling into a lot of the majors hasn't been spectacular. So, I think Phil had the best shakedown of them all, kind of exiting his career and signing that big bonus. But I think, the Live Tour guys, whatever Bryson wants, you better keep him happy. Because he is by far your best asset over there.
Yeah.
Especially for American golf.
Yeah.
And we all know how hard it is to watch a Live Tour event in the States. You got to watch the CW at like 7:30 in the morning. I mean, it's pretty bad on that. But Bryson is by far your life vest right now, with Rahm being okay and Dustin kind of exiting and Bubba exiting and Phil exiting. And so it's very interesting on kind of that dynamic of. And I probably guarantee you when they signed Bryson, they didn't think Bryson was going to be there. They're probably like, yeah, it's cool. He hits it a long way. He's a good feeder. But I don't think they thought that he would be the piece that held that whole league together. All right, so we'll wrap this one up. Anything exciting going on in y'all's world? You going to be anywhere, do anything other than reading wonderful research papers?
Oh, wow. I'm just going to finally get back onto a golf course, which is going to feel really good. And I'll travel some this summer to tournaments and so on. But it's going to be a pretty typical summer for me. Nothing too unusual.
Nice.
How about you?
Chris, you got anything exciting going on?
Hopefully seeing you in the near future. So a little visit, maybe a little fly fishing. So that'll be great. Obviously, we have the PGA at Quail Hollow. Then we got Pittsburgh coming up for the U.S. Open. So those are good events. Got some U.S. Open local qualifiers and regionals. So hopefully those players progress through and we get to make a little road trip.
Nice. Super. They're fun. They're fun events to go to, especially when you get inside the ropes.
Yep.
So I got nothing really exciting going on. Just doing my weirdness every day. My wife says it. Me being me. No, it's fun. It's, I think golf is, in its essence, it's just a great sport, and to watch people and how you learn a lot about a player and you learn a lot about a person by watching them on a golf course.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
there's no sport on earth. I don't think there's any sport harder than golf for what it entails. Your abilities, your skill sets, to be really, really good at this game and adaptable and on a ball that doesn't move. And the biggest complaint is, well, the ball doesn't move. That makes it even worse because I'm not reacting. So much of baseball and football is a reaction, right? You're not thinking about what's getting ready to happen. You just it just happens. Like golf is like this little white ball's just staring at you going, ha ha, what do you think is going to happen? So
Oh, yeah.
I think that whole setup is fascinating. So that's where, again, major golf, if you're not a huge golf fan, I encourage you to watch majors, especially the U.S. Open is a great one because that golf course, they play right around par. So
That's
now
I love
we,
it.
as a common amateur or a good player, would go out there and shoot like 106, 115, but they're shooting, 72. But at least in that moment, we're like, yeah, man, that's what I shoot. No, you wouldn't. So, but I think
He's
it's
being
exciting.
100%.
And hopefully we'll have some good stuff this summer with GolfCask. I'm working on some golf tournament stuff right now. We're trying to get a couple big events together in the fall. So I'd like to get 2 big events going there. And then if you have been inside of GolfCask, we do have maps up now that are actually running well with pubs, certified golf courses, distilleries, and we're starting to put members up. So you can actually click on the member and it puts you into our forum and you can have conversations with the member. So if you are traveling to Williamsburg or you're traveling somewhere else and there's a member there, you can say, hey, you free for 9 holes? You want to go have a pour with me? Things like that. So that's that
cool.
community part's starting to grow a little bit. So check that out. But thank you, Mike. Thank you, Chris, for joining us, and thank everybody for joining us. And we will bring you back. We'll be back in a couple weeks. If there's any topics you want us to hit, let us know. And like I said, we might have to talk about caddies. I got some great stories. I mean, I just have story after story about caddies. So it's that in itself could be I could talk for an hour on that. So we'll hit that up, and thank y'all, and we will see you at a later date.
Hey, yeah, thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya.